The guys behind Rick and Morty love throwing obscure references in their show. 8 seasons later, they have not eased up. But still, when I decided to look into all the cinematic references in the show, I had no idea there'd be this many. Anyways, here are all of the film references I could find in the show, and there's gonna be a lot of them, so buckle up. Season 1, Pilot. The whole premise was based on Back to the Future. That's where the whole mad scientist and scared teen trope comes from. Lawnmower Dog. The movie Lawnmower Man, which the title takes from, toyed with the idea of increased intelligence, which totally makes sense considering the episode's plot. The other plot too, in which Rick and Morty go inside Mr. Goldenfold's dreams to convince him to give Morty good grades, was a homage to Inception.
You can enter people's dreams, Morty. It's just like that movie that you keep crowing about. You talking about Inception? That's right, Morty.
And Scary Terry was a total parody of Freddy Krueger from A Nightmare on Elm Street, but definitely nicer.
It's like some sort of legally safe knockoff of an 80s horror character with miniature swords for fingers instead of knives.
Anatomy Park. The episode's title was a clear reference to Jurassic Park. It even had similar branding.
Welcome to Anatomy Park! It's a little business venture I've been cooking up on the side with Dr. Bloom.
The similarities are so brazen, honestly, it's probably enough for a lawsuit. And Morty's whole journey inside Ruben's body was also a clear ode to Fantastic Voyage 1996, that also featured a journey inside someone's body. M. Night Shyamalan Aliens. Again, the title was a reference to the famous director M. Night Shyamalan, and the episode also followed his storytelling style and quirks, like throwing in a lot of twists and keeping things really unpredictable. And the whole never-ending fake reality thing was definitely taken from Inception.
You're inside a simulation of a simulation inside another giant simulation.
Rick Potion number 9. When Rick and Morty destroyed their timeline after the Love Potion fiasco, the whole world turned into Cronenbergs.
Here we are, Cronenberg Morty. A reality where everyone in the world got genetically Cronenberged. We'll fit right in, Cronenberg Morty.
A nod to David Cronenberg, who's actually a really famous director known for his body horror. The episode's title is not just a song reference, but also a movie reference. There's a movie called Love Potion number 9, in which 2 scientists make a substance that makes everyone around them attracted to them as soon as they talk. The monologue Summer recited in the post-credit scene was a reference to the cult classic Jaws.
The thing about a shark,
You know the thing about a shark?
he's got lifeless eyes.
Lifeless eyes.
Black eyes like a doll's eyes.
Black eyes like a doll's eyes.
When he comes at ya,
When he comes at you,
he doesn't seem to be living until he bites ya.
doesn't seem to be living until he bites you.
Raising Gazorpazorp. The title is a reference to Raising Arizona, a movie that was also about the chaos that comes with kids. The giant floating stone head that delivers sex robots to the Gazorpian society was taken straight from Zardos, a 70s sci-fi flick. And that whole women-run society, that was also borrowed from there. I'm not sure if this next one's a real reference or just a coincidence. There's a part of this episode where Morty lies to his son and tells him the air outside is poisonous and he better stay inside or not cause destruction as a result. And it was all Morty trying to find ways to keep his rapidly growing and potentially quite aggressive son out of harm's way while he figures out what he's doing. But then the kid is so fed up and walks out the front door anyway, and he discovers the lie. And this is really similar to the plot of 10 Cloverfield Lane. And when Morty Jr. leaves the house and dances along to music from a boombox, it was totally a Footloose reference. Rixty Minutes. During Interdimensional Cable, a show features a deceased elderly woman being propped up by her many cats. It was a lot like what happened in Weekend at Bernie's, a comedy about 2 friends trying to pass their dead one as alive so they can enjoy the weekend at their boss's beach house. In an alternate reality, Jerry saw himself in Cloud Atlas.
How is this possible?
Infinite timelines, infinite possibilities, including a timeline where Jerry's a movie star.
Something Wicked This Way Comes. The title is a book by Ray Bradbury, which also got turned into a movie, so technically it counts as a movie reference too. And the whole cursed items, shop trope and character Lucius Needful was from Stephen King's book Needful Things, that also got turned into a movie. And if we pause for a second, the OG reference is from Macbeth by William Shakespeare, where the witches go,
By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes.
close Rick counters of the Rick kind. The title was inspired by Close Encounters of the Third Kind, a sci-fi movie about making contact with aliens. One of the Council of Ricks prank called Jerry, saying the call is coming from inside the house.
What? Is that cool with you, dog?
Rick, no! Morty!
Got it. The call's coming from inside the house. Look at his face.
Which was from the iconic horror film When a Stranger Calls.
Jill, this is Sergeant Sacker. Listen to me. We've traced the call. It's coming from inside the house.
One Morty was explicitly described as Eric Stoltz's Mask Morty,
Hey, he looks a lot like Eric Stoltz from the movie Mask.
which is a 1985 film featuring, well, you guessed it, actor Eric Stoltz. One of the Morty characters recites the line,
Show me the Morty. Dumb.
which is a wordplay on Show Me the Money, an iconic quote from the 1996 movie Jerry Maguire.
Show me the money!
Jerry had an R2-D2 coin in his collection, which was a character from Star Wars. Rixy Business. This one borrowed a lot from Tom Cruise's iconic 80s flick Risky Business. It wasn't just the title, the whole house party plot was similar too. This was the first time we were introduced to one of Rick's oldest friends, Bird Person, and his character design resembles Hawk from Buck Rogers' franchise a lot. Beth and Jerry were on their own mission, and it included Titanic, which, as we all know, was a very famous movie. There was also a Cape Fear reference. That's where the whole hide yourself under a moving car thing comes from.
Cape Fear! Cape Fear! I'm going to do like from Cape Fear!
Season 2, A Wrinkle in Time. The title was a wordplay on A Wrinkle in Time, and even though the story didn't copy the movie's plot, it did dabble in the concept of fractured time, just like the movie. There were also plenty of similarities between the 4D beings destroying timelines in the episode and the time-devouring creatures from Stephen King's The Langoliers. Morty, Night, Run. The title was a clear play on the action comedy starring Robert De Niro, and the plot similarly involved Morty being on the run with Fart, who was also somewhat of an outlaw.
After I return to the others with this location, we will be back for your cleansing.
Cleansing?
Autoerotic assimilation. There was a clear nod in this one to Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The opening scene where a peaceful alien population is assimilated by a hive mind was a parody of the iconic assimilation from this classic sci-fi horror. The dialogue was a clear reference to Ridley Scott's 1979 Alien.
If you find a room full of eggs, don't shy away from it. Give one of them a shake. Those facehuggers are worth more than this ship.
There was an Easter egg, which was a Dude, Where's My Car reference. A picture on the wall read, Dude, Where's My Grandpa? Parodying the title of the stoner comedy film. Morty and Summer both cried out,
There's no place like home! There's no place like home, remember, Summer? From Dorothy and the Tiny People movie?
referencing Dorothy's famous line, which they describe as Dorothy in the Tiny People movie. A clear Wizard of Oz reference.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
Total Recall. The title was a nameplay on the Total Recall franchise. The plot itself had a reference to yet another John Carpenter movie, The Thing. It's a Thing-style setup because, just like in that movie, nobody knows who's real and who's secretly an alien, and this paranoia runs rampant.
Is anyone here even real? Am I the only real person on Earth?
The Ricks must be crazy. The title is taken from the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy. The spirit tree koala and the tree people was a reference to the Tree of Souls from Avatar. Big Trouble in Little Sanchez. The title was a reference to John Carpenter's movie Big Trouble in Little China. Morty and Summer's high school gym coach was a vampire.
Master, speak. Coach Ferratu's presence was discovered by the humans.
And their name was a playful reference to Nosferatu, the iconic vampire. Jerry pictures Beth as a xenomorph-like creature during subconscious visualization. The way it was designed was definitely an alien reference. Interdimensional Cable 2, Tempting Fate. We saw a facehugger-style parasite on a patient's face in the hospital waiting room. It also came from the Alien franchise. One of the items Steely stole in the interdimensional cable segments was a red stapler, which looked random at first, but it's actually from Office Space. Look Who's Purging Now. The episode's title was taken from Look Who's Talking Now, a comedy movie from 1993. The planet's Purge Festival, where all crime is legal for 24 hours, was a direct narrative homage to the Purge film franchise, as was part of the title.
You have one night a year where you all run around robbing and murdering each other without consequence.
That's right.
What? It's like The Purge, Morty. That movie, The Purge.
The Wedding Squanches. The title was wordplay on the Wedding Crashers, and the plot definitely borrowed from it. Birdperson and Tammy's wedding had a banquet full of some really weird dishes, like monkey's brain, which also happened to be a delicacy served during the feast scene from the movie Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. At one point, Rick said for nobody to tell him that Braveheart wins at the Oscars.
Must be time for his annual Oscar party. By the way, our TV signals take light years to reach his planet. Nobody tell him that Braveheart wins.
There was also a mugwump-like alien at the wedding who looked a lot like a creature from Naked Lunch. Season 3, The Shawshank Redemption. The title was a reference to the classic Stephen King film adaptation, The Shawshank Redemption, which was a movie about a man wrongly sent to prison. Rick's favorite Szechuan sauce was released by McDonald's as part of a promotional campaign for the animated movie, Mulan, back in the 90s.
I'll go out and I'll find some more of that Mulan Szechuan teriyaki dipping sauce, Morty. That's my one-armed man.
During his tirade about the sauce, he mentioned a one-armed man, which is a reference to The Fugitive, a movie about a man wrongfully accused of murdering his wife. Romancing the Stone. The title was a wordplay on the movie Romancing the Stone, a romantic adventure movie about a novelist who sets off to release her sister from kidnappers. Other than that, the overall aesthetic of the episode was like a big tribute to Mad Max. There was the post-apocalyptic wasteland, costumes, and the Blood Dome, which was an homage to the Thunderdome. The characters are spray painting their faces and one of them yells, "My body is chrome! My blood is gasoline!" Which is just a remix of Fury Road's whole shiny and chrome afterlife thing.
You will ride eternal, shining and chrome.
Pickle Rick. This episode was a parody of a lot of action movies. A lot of the action sequences were frame parallels of these iconic action flicks. Iron Man, another one of Oldboy, X-Men Apocalypse, John Wick, Shoot 'em Up, Deadpool, Kill Bill, The Rock, Commando, Congo, Die Hard, Face Off, Rambo 3, Machete, and RoboCop. Vindicators 3, Return of Worldender. The Vindicators logo was designed to look a lot like the Avengers symbol, basically framing them as Rick and Morty's own knockoff superhero team. Morty listing off
Lady Katana, Calypso, Diablo Verde
was a joke on Suicide Squad, since those names are twisted versions of Katana, Enchantress, and El Diablo. And Rick's little setup was a clear reference to the death traps in the Saw franchise. In fact, he said so himself.
You break the rules, lose the game, or try to leave, you will die. Like in Saw.
The Whirly-Durly Conspiracy. When Summer accidentally enlarged herself to the point that the house was splintered around her, it was very similar to that sequence from Alice in Wonderland, in which she transforms into a giant. It was also a lot like that movie, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. When she went after Ethan and Tricia, it was a callback to Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. When Rick said,
"Yo, what's up, Big Chill? Don't go into that telepod!"
it was again a direct reference to The Fly, where a character's body grotesquely mutates. It was also a reference to Big Chill, an 80s comedy movie about 7 former college friends that get together for a weekend. The whirly-durly mind-melding end sequence was a total parody of the psychedelic visual style from 2001, A Space Odyssey. The trippy sequence happened on a spaceship that looked like the Flotsam Paradise cruise ship from The Fifth Element. In Rick's garage, you could spot a device resembling the flux capacitor, an iconic piece of time travel tech from Back to the Future, rest and Ricklaxation. When Rick was awarded a plasma shard from the princess at the start of the episode, it looked a lot like that scene from Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, in which Queen Amidala presents an orb to Boss Nass during the ending celebration. Rick and Morty even had medals that looked just like the ones in A New Hope, which has a very similar ending sequence. Morty is the last person I'd ever have expected to become a stockbroker, but he did in the episode. Rick even called him
Tiny American Psycho.
And the way Rick summoned a toxic world monster was very similar to the alien creature aesthetics like those in Attack the Block, a movie about a group of brave teenagers who go to battle aliens. Also, that scene where he tosses an apple to a guy behind him is an homage to the Wolf of Wall Street's penny stock scene. The Ricklantis Mix-Up. The title was a reference to Tales from the Crypt. The Four Mortys journey was very similar to that of the boys in Stand By Me. The Cop Rick, Cop Morty storyline was a clear homage to Training Day's tough cop dynamic. Rick D. Sanchez III's design borrowed heavily from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The Four Mortys searching for the wishing portal was a lot like the journey from Stalker, another surreal movie by Andrei Tarkovsky. It was about a small group traveling through a forbidden zone to reach a mysterious wish-granting room. That scene in which President Morty killed off all of the henchmen who confessed to opposing him was a reference to James Bond, Thunderball. The long-haired Rick teacher was so obviously a nod to Severus Snape from the Harry Potter movies. At the end, Rick J22 seemed to taste freedom and walk towards a new life, but it was revealed to be a continuous replayed memory used by the company, which echoes the ending of Brazil, where Sam Lowry believes he has escaped from the oppressive bureaucracy, only to be shown living in a fantasy in his own mind. And it also mirrored Repo Men, where a character experiencing pleasant memories is later revealed to be in a coma with severe brain damage rather than truly free. Well, that's bleak as hell, but a more realistic ending for someone who dares oppose tyrannical systems all on their own. Morty's Mind Blowers. That creepy-looking guy chasing Morty at the beginning of the episode was actually a reference to Neil Gaiman's Sandman, a book that got adapted into a film and a TV show. It wasn't just him. The whole setting of that memory, a strange maze of some sort, really resembled Jim Henson's cult classic Labyrinth, including flipped perspective and surreal visuals similar to the movie's maze. Rick's mind-erasing tech was actually from the Men in Black movies. In one of the memories, Beth was forced to choose which of her children to spare.
I will spare one of their lives. You simply have to choose.
Summer! Summer!
That was a reference to Sophie's Choice. One of Morty's memories is a very clear nod to Ghostbusters. Rick wore a proton pack and held a proton projector, hunting a ghostly Morty who looked like Slimer. If you thought you recognized the tune Morty was whistling during the squirrel memory, it was from the movie The Bridge on the River Kwai. In the post-credits scene, Jerry's mind blower showed him discovering an alien left in his car and accidentally causing its death, which was an obvious parody of the ending of the Alien movie E.T. Meebo's death was shown exactly like the Tauntaun burial from Empire Strikes Back. It was just a difference of the creature. The Black Shadow spirits dragging an alien named Zigzag to an afterlife realm evoked the afterlife mythology depicted in Ghost, a 90s thriller. The ABCs of Beth. There was a 2012 horror anthology titled The ABCs of Death, which is where the title comes from. Those creatures hunted by Jerry's rebound Kiara looked like the crawlers from the horror movie The Descent. Rick offered to make Beth a clone that would never go Blade Runner, which was an obvious Blade Runner reference.
The moment you decide to come back, I flip a switch, and the clone's job is done. It feels no pain, regrets nothing, and has zero chance of going Blade Runner.
Now, that's an offer no one could refuse. Man, kinda wishing Rick was my grandpa now. The scene where Beth and Rick entered Fruity Land closely mirrored Pan's Labyrinth, where a chalk-drawn door opens into a hidden fantasy world. And Fruity Land itself reminded me a lot of Jumanji-style Trap World stories, and a Varix creature that grew spider legs after being severed referenced the monster transformation from The Thing. It's so obvious that this is one of the show writers' favorite movies. Thing references are everywhere. The Rick-Turian Morty Date. The title was a wordplay on the thriller The Manchurian Candidate, and Rick also complained that the president treated him and Morty like Ghostbusters.
This just sucks.
He treats us like Ghostbusters.
Season 4, Edge of Tomorty, Rick Die, Rick Pete. The title was a direct reference to the science fiction action film Edge of Tomorrow. In this movie, the hero died and was resurrected again due to alien technology, just like Rick kept dying and waking up in new realities before finding his way home. After Morty killed a bunch of police officers and soldiers with Rick's weapons, he was referred to as the Akira Boy by the news anchors, just like the scene in which Tetsuo wipes out a bunch of soldiers using telekinesis during his rampage in the city in the movie Akira. Morty's bully referenced the 2017 flick Coco in his speech to Morty.
What if I killed you? Would you be strutting then? Only if the events of the Pixar movie Coco are to be believed, which I doubt.
Same here, kid. Some of the ferrofluid sequences visually reference the goo-like alien symbiote from Venom, mimicking how that film's black symbiote envelops and transforms its hosts. An early imagined death, where an elevator door closes and beheads Morty, visually paralleled the Final Destination franchise's super complicated death setups, specifically Final Destination 2, The Old Man and the Seat. The title was a reference to The Old Man and the Sea, a Hemingway novel that got its own film adaptation. The same way the main character in it was obsessed with catching a fish, Rick was obsessed with finding who shattered his toilet. Rick's walk through the wheat field towards his secret toilet was visually a reference to the way Maximus walked through the wheat field toward the afterlife in Gladiator. The Monogatron's leader's design and throne room was such an obvious parody of the Emperor from Star Wars Return of the Jedi on his rebuilt Death Star. Rick said,
I've got a quick solo adventure to go on, and this one will not be directed by Ron Howard.
He was the guy who directed Solo, a Star Wars story. One Crew Over the Cuckoo's Morty. The title itself was wordplay on the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Rick even admitted,
Randotron's algorithm is derived from the plots of 3 David Lynch movies I pretended to like to make my friends shut up.
Poking fun at those ultra-weird artsy movies people say they love. That giant boulder rolling towards them was straight out of Raiders of the Lost Ark. You could spot the little origami horse lying around, which was a reference to the origami unicorn from Blade Runner. The way Heistatron spiraled out of control in the final scene mirrored how things went off the rails with the computer in the sci-fi flick, War Games. They kept doing the
"You son of a bitch!
You son of a bitch!
You son of a bitch! I mean!"
which was likely directly lifted from the iconic moment in Predator.
You son of a bitch!
Morty climbing the cliff while Rick casually floated beside him was a nod to the very similar scene in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Rick flat out said Ocean's 12 was the worst of the heist movies.
It doesn't make things interesting, it makes them Ocean's 12. By far the worst one.
The Crystal Skull of Horowitz was a clear parody of the Crystal Skull from Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. When Rick said,
Lab coat, rip off Doctor Strange,
he was referring to the movie. And when Rick stopped Hephaestus' hammer with his bare hand, it was clearly riffing in Thor Ragnarok. Claw and Hoarder, special Rick-Tim's Morty. Rick's soul bonding with the dragons was a lot like the way they did it in Braveheart. Balthamore had Small Soldiers Twist Pops, a reference to Small Soldiers 1998. The Talking Cat was directly inspired by the movie The Cat from Outer Space, a movie about a UFO being intercepted that was being captained by a cat of all things. The scene of Balthamore lying on top of a pile of treasure is a nod to the dragon Smaug from The Hobbit. Rattlestar Rick Lactica. Morty talked about how 2 guys left the ship and one went spinning away.
Can I come out with you, Rick?
No, I've seen this movie. 2 guys leave the ship, 1 guy goes spinning away. You're staying in here where it's safe.
Ring any bells? It's another 2001, A Space Odyssey reference. We saw yet another Back to the Future reference. In the Snake timeline of 1985, a poster spoofing the movie was seen with snakes dressed as Marty and Doc Brown. The remote control Rick used to freeze Beth was from a movie named Click, an Adam Sandler movie from 2006. When Jerry wanted random street players to bet on whether he, a white man, could jump.
Hey, who's interested in a friendly bet that this white guy can jump?
Hey, leave the racial stuff off the court, okay?
Oh.
It was a nod to White Men Can't Jump, a 90s comedy flick starring Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson. There's a sequence on the Snake Planet of recruiting a language professor to speak to the alien snake, which was a reference to Arrival, a movie about a linguistics expert who has to interpret the language of these aliens who've arrived on Earth. Never Ricking Morty. The title is a wordplay on the 80s flick The Never-Ending Story. There was a poster in the train cart titled The Sound of Rick, which is very obviously a parody of The Sound of Music. I don't know about you guys, but I would love to see that. Musical Rick would be very entertaining.
Yes, you're a bird and a person.
I'm a bird and a person and more.
The entire concept of the train and the look of the super ripped tough guy engineer are taken from The Emperor of the North Pole from 1973. The Meeseeks of the Opera poster in the train cart was such a hilarious reference to the Phantom of the Opera. Pro-Mortius. The title was a reference to Prometheus, the Alien prequel. The Glorzo facehugger parasites that latch onto Rick and Morty were modeled after the Xenomorph facehuggers from the Alien films, including egg-laying and mind-control behavior. Rick and Morty flew away, still attached to something, and fired at the alien ships, just like Poe and Finn from Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. The Vat of Acid episode. We saw Rick doing repairs on one of the spheres from Phantasm. Rick's lab had a vial of ooze named TGIR, just like in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. Rick mentioned the Prestige when finally telling Morty about the remote's real effects.
It's the Prestige. You prestige
Rick,
yourself.
how many did I kill?
Tell me, Morty.
Rick said if Ant-Man and the Wasp from the 2018 movie of the same name, could time travel, he wasn't interested in it.
I don't respect time travel. If Ant-Man and the Wasp can do it, I'm not interested.
Childrick of Mort. The episode title was wordplay on Children of Men. It was a dystopian film about a world without children, which is funny, because in this new world there were nothing but children. When Squeeb told Jerry,
"Use the s'more, Jerry,"
it was a parody on the famous line, "Use the Force, Luke."
Use the Force, Luke.
Rick mentioned The Ring, a Japanese horror film, by name when he complained about Summer smoking brake fluid.
Did you know Summer huffed a Kazak's array? She basically smoked the ring.
Morty's line about the crashed alien ship's crew seeing their own fears because of a nebula.
Damn, you think they got infected by a mind slug or something?
Probably drove through a nebula that made them see their own fears.
Was almost identical to Event Horizon's psychotropic ship premise, and also closely resembled Sphere's idea of manifested fears. The family car transformed into a station wagon reminiscent of the Griswold's vehicle from National Lampoon's Vacation. Rick mentioned the song Circle of Life from The Lion King.
You sure these kids are yours?
What, you've never heard me sing karaoke? I'm pretty good when someone's in my register, like the guy that sings Circle of Life.
Star Mort, Return of the Jedi. The title was a wordplay on Star Wars Return of the Jedi. Morty said,
"It's not Citizen Kane, but why compete with whatever's going on here, you know?"
Which is one of the best movies ever made, according to many cinephiles. The plot of the 1973 movie, Don't Look Now, was also mentioned.
Never thought this was how I'd die. We're nowhere near Venice and you're not a dwarf in a raincoat.
When Jerry used Tammy's dead body as a puppet to pretend she was alive, it was another reference to the movie Weekend at Bernie's. The fight balls used by Rick and Beth look exactly like Pokeballs, and the summoned monsters work pretty much like those in the Pokemon cinematic franchise. The two Beths reflected on how their situation was like the Parent Trap, but the other Beth only cared for the Lindsay Lohan version.
Maybe we could do like a Parent Trap thing together sometime, as long as you mean the Lindsay Lohan version. Literally!
We saw a beam of light from a ship destroy everyone it touched, just like in War of the Worlds 2005. It was an alien invasion flick based off the book of the same name by H.G. Wells. Season 5. Mort Dinner, Rick Andre. The episode title was a playful riff on My Dinner with Andre. When Hoovy discovered his wife's skeleton sitting there with her deranged son, it played just like the creepy reveal of Norman's mother in Psycho. The medieval world where Morty grabbed the wine with their time moving way faster was basically their version of Narnia Dimension from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Mortyplicity. Rick straight up compared the Decoy families to Westworld, since they were basically artificial people starting to go off script.
Damn, like Westworld.
Yes, Morty, like Westworld, but don't fuck them.
The Scarecrow Decoy family, plus Rick's plan to wear human skin, felt like a twisted nod to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Leatherface. Rick said the decoys turning on him was basically a Blade Runner situation, with creations rebelling.
What are you gonna save every stray cat?
No, but I can resist making more of them in a lab.
Look, save the empathy. It's more termite infestation than Blade Runner.
One decoy Rick ripping open Summer's arm to reveal a robot skeleton was straight out of the Terminator. Rick saying they were under Highlander rules was him joking that, just like in the movie, there could be only one left standing.
Well, how do we stop it?
Beth, the loop's already started. It's basically Highlander rules now. Really? 1986? There can be only one? Shit, we gotta rent it after this. Connery plays the Spaniard, but does nothing about his accent.
Even the episode title played off multiplicity, which was all about dealing with too many copies of the same person. Morty pointing out how creepy the decoys were felt like a shout out to Ex Machina.
Wow, like Ex Machina.
Yes, Morty, like Ex Machina, but don't fuck them.
And that weird Italian peach scene with one of the decoy Mortys was clearly riffing on Call Me By Your Name. A Rick Convenient Mort. The title was a reference to An Inconvenient Truth, that global warming documentary. A Morty poster seen in the episode had Darth Buddha written on it, an obvious Star Wars joke. Rick mentioned the movie Deep Impact when talking about how a planet will be annihilated.
Morglutz's sun is going supernova, Slardavart is falling into a black hole, and Furcus 9 is getting deep impacted by an asteroid.
Rick Dependent Spray. Morty refers to the underground cannibalistic horse people as chuds.
Forgive me, your chudness. I'm a changed man starting now.
Which was also a 1984 movie. Rick mentioned Iron Man.
Everyone can change their nature, Morty. It's what defines our species. Look at Iron Man. That actor was an animal in the 90s, literally waking up in bushes.
And the title is very obviously Independence Day as a reference. A Mortican Graffiti. The title played off American Graffiti, the 1973 coming-of-age film about youthful cruising and rebellion. Rick put an automatic garage lock on the door like in Jurassic Park.
We're touching Rick's stuff.
Summer, he said no.
Nuh-uh. I said don't touch my shit. Also, I just watched Jurassic Park on cable. So good. Seriously, though. Touch my shit and I'll freeze your dick in amber.
God, that was annoying in the Jurassic Park movie.
You didn't say the magic word.
Please! God damn it!
The Hellraisers were parodies of the Cenobites from Hellraiser, with all the demon aesthetics taken straight from that franchise. The Changeformers were parodies of the Transformers. In the montage of planets the car showed off, Morty and Summer made an alien spacecraft driver crash into an asteroid in a way that referenced the pod racer scene from Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Rick and Morty's Thanksploitation spectacular. Stealing the Constitution like a treasure hunt was basically poking fun at National Treasure. The episode's title itself was a salute to 1950s to 1970s holiday exploitation movies, which were often campy takes on national holidays. The opening alien hunters on Earth using advanced tech to stalk prey was a Predator reference. Scare-style sequences with knives, masked attackers, and gory close-ups mirrored slasher horror, clearly referencing films like Friday the 13th. Some of the shape-shifting alien turkey body horror, including paranoia about who is real, directly references The Thing again, particularly the B-plots with the hidden identities. Gotron Genesis Rick Vangelion. The title fused giant mecha vibes from Voltron and Evangelion into one mashup. Rick's meltdown about blueprints totally echoed The Aviator.
Show me all the blueprints! Show me all the blueprints!
Show me all the blueprints. Show me all the blueprints.
Rick's mafia boss scenes felt like walking out of Scarface. All that stuff about betrayal and turning your back on someone was straight out of Goodfellas.
That should be enough for school lunch and home repairs. Now I gotta turn my back on you.
No!
Now I gotta turn my back.
And that giant baby smashing through with space epic music going on in the background, you guessed it, another 2001 A Space Odyssey callback. Rick Ternal Friendshine of the Spotless Mort. The title was a wordplay on Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, a movie about erasing painful memories. When Rick escaped with Bird Person through the roof, it straight up parodied the famous I'm Flying scene from Titanic. Memory Rick's outfit looked like Han Solo's from Star Wars A New Hope, giving that beaten down bohemian yet spacey vibe. Gene comparing Rick's AI to Jarvis was a fun shout out to the Iron Man and MCU universes.
Oh, like a Jarvis, like Jarvis in Iron Man.
Ha ha ha, oh, I wish. Ha, are you a Marvel fan?
Who isn't?
While they were walking through Bird Person's memories, Rick mentioned the Shrek movies.
So he's just a grumpy Scottish ogre, and they made 4 of them? 5 by now, probably. Morty loves them. Morty? Oh, hypothetical grandson we go on adventures with.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall. The title was a wordplay on the movie Forgetting Sarah Marshall, a romantic comedy about moving on from past relationships, which is what Rick and Morty were trying to do. When the crow aliens turned all the nearby crows feral and attacked humans, it was a throwback to the cult classic, The Birds, by Hitchcock. The asylum guards licking faces takes its creepy cue from Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Still better than Mondays.
Jeez, what happens then?
They lick our faces when we're tied down.
In the cold open, Morty killed a lava monster made from Rick's stolen gem. That creature was inspired by the lava monster from the animated movie Moana. Rick Mirai Jack. The title is wordplay on Samurai Jack. A flashback shot of Rick and Bird Person as Cyberpunk City with a brown overcoat totally calls back to the Blade Runner aesthetic. Rick's Crow Warrior outfit has a vibe that resembles the Vampire Hunter D aesthetic. Hunchback Morty is clearly parodying Quasimodo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Season 6, Solaris. The title was a wordplay on the 1972 sci-fi flick Solaris, a movie about a space station haunted by manifestations of lost loved ones and memory, just like Rick was being haunted by his past and his wife's AI. Morty's original grandfather said that this situation might be a Saw thing.
Again, it might be me, but like a Saw thing. I'm very sneaky.
Jerry called Mr. Frundles a boogan.
I don't care how cute he is. We agreed, no boogans in the house.
Referencing to the 1981 monster horror, The Boogans. The way Rick and Morty are saved from floating in space by Space Beth was very similar to the rescue of Iron Man by Captain Marvel in Avengers Endgame. Summer accessed a vending machine with items that looked too much like Marvel characters' gear for it to be a coincidence, like Thor's hammer and Wolverine's claws. Rick, a Mort well lived. This episode had a full-on parody of Die Hard. Summer was told to sneak through air vents and just do a Die Hard, when alien terrorists took over the arcade.
Do a Die Hard.
What does that mean?
Sneak around, use air vents. You've never seen Die Hard?
I'm 17. No, I've never seen fucking Die Hard.
The alien leader in the episode knowingly takes on the persona of Hans Gruber, the villain played by Alan Rickman from the movie. Rick joked about Batman in Zack Snyder's Justice League when discussing how much of a Snyder Cut was just dream sequences.
And 8% of anything is expendable. 8% of pizza is crust. 8% of the Snyder Cut was Batman dreaming.
The alien terrorists inside the arcade kind of resembled Jar Jar Binks, a Star Wars character. Misa don't know about this one. Bethic Twinstinct. The title was a wordplay on the thriller Basic Instinct, an iconic thriller at that. Rick mentioned Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind when warning Beth and Space Beth about wiping their memories of the affair, comparing their plan to that movie's Forget Your Ex plot.
You guys are having me Eternal Sunshine, all the multiplicity porn scenes from your minds?
Yep. He also brought up multiplicity while talking about memory erasure, using the film about clones to describe their situation. Night Family. Beth burned her DVDs of Independence Day, Groundhog Day, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which we saw get trashed when the Night Family took over. On the Smiths TV screen, the Night Family was seen watching Night at the Museum. The Night Family itself was a clear homage to Jordan Peele's Us, where doppelgangers rise up from below to take over the protagonists' lives. The way the Night Family acted and moved was a lot like The Revenants from The Fog, an 80s horror film about a town that gets overrun with a mysterious fog. You know, now we're like, 6 seasons deep? There's been a lot of horror movie references in Rick and Morty. Final Desmithation. The title was a wordplay on the horror franchise Final Destination. But it didn't end there. The whole episode played like a spoof of the Final Destination movies, where characters tried to outsmart fate, but kept dying in absurd, unavoidable ways anyway. But in this case, Jerry was trying to avoid his fate of having sex with his mother.
What's your stupid 21st century watered-down fortune cookie say, Dad?
You will have sex with your mother.
Jurassic Mort. The title was a wordplay on Jurassic Park, because dinosaurs returned and dominated the Earth once more. Morty saying,
"Clever girl,"
to one of the dinosaurs was a direct nod to the famous line in the original Jurassic Park when the velociraptors surprised Muldoon.
Clever girl.
Rick joked about him and Morty being like Jurassic Park characters, getting elbow deep in dino doo-doo.
They're gonna call us Laura Dern because we're about to get elbow deep in dino doo-doo.
One of the planets they visited with evolved dinos talking about making increasingly terrible movies of cloning dinosaurs at a theme park, which was their way of poking fun at the whole Jurassic Park franchise.
We're even making a series of increasingly terrible movies about cloning them in a theme park.
Full Meta Jackrick. The title was a nod to the war classic Full Metal Jacket. Rick joked that every second in the meta layer was worth 10 Space Jam cameos.
Every second we spend here is the equivalent to 10 Space Jam cameos.
Talking about how many times the characters appeared in that movie. In the Previously On cold open, it showed raining meatballs from the film Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Jesus breaking Rick's back the way Bane did to Batman in The Dark Knight Rises was referenced as a visual beat during the fight. Joseph Campbell explicitly called Rick and Morty rip-offs of Back to the Future's main characters.
Maybe I'm not an alcoholic.
I know,
You
right?
fucking Back to the Future rip-offs!
Tying back to how the show's protagonists were originally inspired by that movie duo. Analyze Piss. Rick's whole planned heroic sacrifice near the end directly mirrored the staged sacrifice scene from The Dark Knight Rises. Because, let's be real, in both cases the hero faked to death / last stand as a public moment of heroism to prove some point. A Rick in King Mortar's Mort. The title is wordplay based on A Kid in King Arthur's Court, a 1995 film where a modern kid ends up in a medieval setting, which is essentially what happened to Morty in this one. Rick told Morty,
"The sword uses AI to learn from an opponent's attacks."
So I have to get attacked first?
No. The sword has already seen Blade and loved it.
And that was used as an in-universe reason the sword fought so well, referencing the 1998 vampire action film. Rictional Mortpoon's Rickmas Mortcation. The title was wordplay on National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, capturing that Christmas chaos / holiday comedy vibe. Morty playing with his new lightsaber was clearly riffing on Star Wars. The whole room was full of realistic lightsabers and droid-style robots, which was a big salute to that franchise's signature look. Rickbot giving Jerry an alternate extended cut of Miracle on 34th Street was the show's way of making fun of the classic holiday film being played so much. Season 7. How Poopy Got His Poop Back. Of course, the biggest reference we got for this episode was Hugh Jackman representing himself from the X-Men movies.
Jane, small world, mate.
Hugh married my cousin, which I guess makes him a Wolverine-law.
But there was another one thrown in right at the end there that many might have missed. All the characters disappearing in the end after their grand adventure was actually a reference to the movies Stand By Me and The Sandlot. And yes, the predators from the movie franchise Predator are canon in the Rick and Morty universe because, of course they are. The Jerick Trap. The title was wordplay on The Parent Trap because it riffed on the idea of two characters swapping roles and identities. Rick and Jerry's mind and body shuffle kicked off lots of Freaky Friday mentions by the characters, since that film is all about swapping minds with someone else.
So we're swapping bodies?
No, that would be Freaky Friday, which is the ceiling of your grasp of consciousness.
Jerry mentioned during the Liam Neeson thing.
Tell me where you are.
No, you tell them where they are.
Like Liam Neeson. Do not pretend to explain Liam Neeson to me, sir. Hey.
A clear nod to how Neeson's character operates in Taken. Jaricki's fused form bore a resemblance to the grotesque creature from the Human Centipede trilogy, highlighting the mashup of grotesquerie that is so core to that film franchise. Blah, how disgusting was that body horror? Air Force One. The title was wordplay on Air Force One, referencing the classic Harrison Ford thriller about a hijacked presidential plane. The alien attacks and chaotic aerial scenes were a parallel to Independence Day's signature invasion style. That's a Morty. The way the episode revealed that the spaghetti was literally made from human bodies
What's the secret ingredient? God, no, why?
Was just too much like the shocking twist in Soylent Green, where the food product was actually processed people. Fred's death and spaghetti transformation were essentially structured like Sol Roth's grim end in the film. Rick said the clones killing each other was a speedrun of Never Let Me Go.
That was some speedrun of Never Let Me Go, huh?
Spoilers, Rick!
Makes sense. It was a movie about clones bred for harvesting body parts. Unmort Rickon. The title was a reference to Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood's classic western about an aging gunslinger coming back for one last job, fitting the narrative's grim, revenge-driven tone. During the search and capture of all the other Ricks, one Rick literally looked like Indiana Jones, a subtle reference to the Indiana Jones adventure films in the midst of multiversal chaos. Another Rick captured during the episode looked like John McClane, the protagonist of Die Hard, with his gruff action hero posture and attitude. At the start of their big battle, Rick firing bullets that Rick Prime stopped in midair was a visual echo of the Matrix slow-motion gunplay. One of the cloned antagonists used against them was clearly inspired by the mutant fighter Kuato from Total Recall, bringing that classic sci-fi film into the fight. Rick Fending Your Mort. The title was wordplay on Albert Brooks' comedy Defending Your Life, since the episode was built around Rick and Morty having to defend a lot of their choices in the Observer Court, not just the ones they were being tried for either. The whole montage of adventure clips was a subtle callback to several movies. One of the clips was titled Maximum Overdrive with Clones.
Show us Maximum Overdrive with clothes!
And it was a direct reference to Maximum Overdrive, a Stephen King movie about machines coming to life. There was another Stephen King reference in this one. One of the clips showed Rick and Morty having an adventure in Pet Sematary, an obvious Pet Sematary reference. The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou and the Grand Budapest Hotel were also referenced. Wet Quat, A Mortican Summer. The title was a wordplay on the cult comedy Wet Hot American Summer. When Morty and Summer fused into a Kuato-like creature with a tiny Morty protruding from Summer's stomach, that was a direct homage to the mutant character Kuato from Total Recall. And the chanting,
"Open your mind,"
repeated in the episode, echoes the iconic line/behavior associated with the Kuato in the 1990 film.
Open your mind.
When Rick went to rescue Summer, the whole storyline borrowed heavily from Liam Neeson's Taken, Rise of the Numbericons. The title was a parody of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, but the Numbericons are a direct parody of the Decepticons, and a title card styled after the 1986 film. Some of the sequences where characters were aware of being manipulated in a digital number world referenced the Matrix's idea of reality being fake. A virtual reality so profound and so complete, it's nearly impossible to realize that it's not in fact reality. The Numbericons battle sequence uses visual cues like army formations and explosive battles, just like the Endor fight scene from Star Wars Episode 6. Mort Ragnarok. The title referenced Thor Ragnarok, when Rick, Morty, and Bigfoot were helped by Count Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, the Wolfman, the Mummy, and Gillman. This lineup was a direct homage to the classic horror team featured in the Monster Squad. The emotional moment where Rick and Morty get close with Bigfoot and return him to the woods was a clear reference to the family monster comedy Harry and the Hendersons, which centers on a Bigfoot who becomes part of a human family. Oh, and Rick uses the Pokeball in this one as well, referencing the highly popular Pokemon franchise from Japan. Fear No Mort. The title was a reference to the thriller Fear No More. The fear hole itself was borrowed from The Hole. The plot revolved around a mysterious hole in which you'd have to face your fear. Rick mentioned the rom-com You've Got Mail.
Morty, all rom-coms have an arc. Even You've Got Mail begins with Tom Hanks killing that cop.
Really?
I don't know. I'm not gonna fucking watch You've Got Mail.
The fear hole's opening look was visually inspired by the Mirror Cave entrance from Star Wars The Last Jedi. Season 8. Summer of All Fears. The title was wordplay on The Sum of All Fears, the 2002 political thriller/terrorism film. Rick trapped Morty and Summer in a simulated reality based on the Matrix films. They had the whole shebang, mechanical pods and whatnots. It was clear as day.
Please, sir, not in the Matrix. You shouldn't put people in matrices.
One of the buildings in the simulation was named White Rabbit, with a poster that was another nod to the Matrix. Remember how Neo was told to follow the White Rabbit? When Morty was getting a tattoo in prison, there was a poster on the wall from the 1 million years BC. It was the same poster used to help the prison escape in the Shawshank Redemption. And I don't know if this one is just me, or was Summer's haircut exactly like Carrie-Anne Moss's? Oh, and Death Race was also mentioned in this one. Morty pimped out a tank that Rick called his Death Race car.
The hell are you doing, Morty? Get your hands off my Death Race car!
Valkyrie. The title comes from the 2008 Tom Cruise flick Valkyrie. Rick joked that the situation with the Gromflamites and Space Beth was like a ghost working with the Ghostbusters. Again, referencing the franchise.
Does your bug culture have ghosts?
Yes.
Has it had any hit movies about busting ghosts successful enough to generate sequels and cartoons?
Of course.
Well, an unlikely ally would be like a ghost that hangs out with the Ghostbusters.
I guess the show's writers just really love Ghostbusters. The mention of Slimer by name tied directly into that same franchise's notable movie character.
Wait, so he's too cool to be a Slimer, but he's asthmatic?
The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly. This is a wordplay on Clint Eastwood's trilogy The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Oddjob Rick was a direct parody of the character Oddjob from the James Bond film Goldfinger, recognized by his distinctive hat and attitude. There was also a Back to the Future reference. Arcade Morty and Doc Morty's appearances intentionally referenced Marty McFly and Doc Brown. The Last Temptation of Jerry. The episode title was a spoof of The Last Temptation of Christ. While uncovering the Easter Bunny's origins, Rick said,
"Come on, Morty, to the Alps! Let's Indiana Jones!"
referencing the iconic film franchise from George Lucas. While he was with Morty in the snowy German Alps, Rick joked about films like Iceman and Encino Man.
You ever see Iceman, Morty? 80s flick, Timothy Hutton?
The 80s were forever ago, Rick.
Encino Man?
You're old.
You're old. Fuck you, Morty.
Fuck you, Rick.
Morty called that German town a Wicker Man place, which is a horror cult classic.
Check out this Wicker Man looking place.
The giant Easter Bunny villain was also a nod to the Ghostbusters dialogue when he said,
"There is no Jerry, only Bunny."
The original was,
"There is no Dana, there is only a zoo."
The Santa Claus movie was joked about when Rick quipped that Jerry had been Easter Claused.
You've been Easter Claused.
Oh no! Wait, what?
Rick, that doesn't make sense. The title of the movie is based on the pawn of Santa's last name.
Did you understand what I meant?
Avatar was also referenced in the joke here, where Jerry spoke Na'vi to Beth, including using film-style font cues.
I don't see you, but I see you now. Or as the Na'vi put it, Oel Nati Kameye.
Cryo more to Rickfer. The whole chaotic treasure chase was a spoof of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. The Curious's Case of Benjamin Button. The title was wordplay on The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, which really fit the theme of Beth and Space Beth de-aging into their 10-year-old selves. Besides that, when the rest of the family visited Earthworld, there were tons of cinematic/celebrity movie role Easter eggs hidden in the park. You could see bobblehead mascots or attractions based on David Bowie as Jareth from Labyrinth. I think the one that opened the door was supposed to be Steven Seagal, Kevin Costner as the Mariner from Waterworld, Jennifer Lawrence as Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games, Natalie Portman as Nina Sayers from Black Swan, and iconic old Hollywood actors Marilyn Monroe and Charlie Chaplin, among other famous movie-linked figures scattered around Earthworld. At one point, Dr. Dogballs explained that his goal as the creator of Earthworld was to make a theme park that ended in chaos, because
the greatest tribute to Earth is a theme park that ends in chaos.
Ricker Than Fiction. The title was a wordplay on Stranger Than Fiction, and the episode itself was a parody of the movie's plot. While they were stuck inside the movie world, Morty compared the sequels and franchise to Citizen Kane, saying they weren't as good.
Not exactly Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane doesn't strike again. Oh, he will.
And Rick even brought it up while talking about Maximum Velocity.
The last Maximum Velocity was all that bad. You said it wasn't Citizen Kane. I'm 14. I've never seen Citizen Kane.
The whole Maximum Velocity franchise was a parody of long-running cinematic universes like the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Transformers franchises, poking fun at lame sequels. Rick also referenced Last Action Hero while they were messing with movie logic inside the Movielizer machine.
The Movielizer Last Action Hero'd us! We're characters in the movie now, Morty!
Makes sense. That movie was about a guy who got transported into the world of his favorite action character, just like Rick and Morty in this episode. The episode also featured both Zack Snyder and James Gunn. No Mortland. The title was wordplay on the film Nomadland, which was about a woman who becomes a nomad and gets on the road after losing her job, which is sort of what happened to Mooch, Jerry. I don't know if he ever had a job and lost it, or he was always unemployed. Morty Daddy. The episode's title is a reference to the television sitcom Baby Daddy. In Morty Daddy, the precog meal predictions were basically poking fun at the movie Minority Report. It was just wooden balls predicting meals instead of crimes. A statue of the Machine and Mensch robot from the 1927 sci-fi classic was seen in Garbtopia. Hot Rick. When Memory Rick called through the air vent system, he snuck around just like James Bond in Doctor No. This one had another 2001 A Space Odyssey reference, by the by, which specifically was when Rick put Memory Rick in the white bedroom. It was practically the same one Dave Bauman was put in by the alien intelligence. Memory Beth asked if she should,
well, if there's no way out, should we just Thelma and Louise this? Wait, what?
Referencing to the famous scene where the characters drive off a cliff. A direct reference to the 1990s classic about two women who accidentally become fugitives while defending themselves. At one point, Summer also mentioned Cannonball Run.
You bitches want to watch a movie or something?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Grandpa keeps referencing Cannonball Run, and I'm tired of pretending I've seen it.
And that's a wrap on this video. Let me tell you guys, this was a tough one. There were so many references, and I'm a big fan, but still, I'm discovering new things about this show all the time. There is so many layers and meta references, and I have no doubt that I'll have missed some. Genuinely, I have tried my best, but do let me know in the comments if I've missed one. Hell, probably I've missed a few. Let me know your favorite references in the comments below, and also your favorite one that I have nearly invariably missed. Come on, there's so many of them at this point. Anyway, that's enough from me. This has been a monster video because there's been a monster number of references. Until the next time, guys, we'll see you around, and make sure to check out some of our other videos while you're here checking out all this cool Rick and Morty content.